Hey folks, James Millard here with Olympic Peninsula Sketcher Tactics, and today we are going to go over our SHS Commando floating tips. We use these floating tips on the end of the commando head, floating commando head, when we want to do a surface presentation of some sort. We've got three different variations of this tip. We've got a 7.5, a 10, and a 12-foot tip to fit all of your needs, from your single-handed 7 and 8 weights all the way up to your 12 and a half foot, 7 and 8 weights. So these tips are very versatile for us. We use them all summer. We're getting ready to switch gears into summer steelhead fishing, summer trout fishing. Winter steelhead fishing is almost over. We've got just a couple of days left, so we'll be making this transition over to summertime fishing stuff, which means dry lines and floating tips. So stay tuned, and we'll go over all three of these tips for you. So as mentioned before, we sell three different types of SHS Commando floating tips. We sell a 7.5 foot 55 grain SHS tip, which is best for rods, 7, 8, and 9 weight single-handed, in the 8-foot to 9-foot range. We sell a 10-foot 75 grain SHS tip, and that's best for your 6, 7, and 8 weight switch rods. And we sell a 12-foot 90 grain SHS tip, and this is best on your 7, 8 weight switches that are a little bit faster, and then also your 12.5 foot 7 and 8 weight spey rods as well. So what are the uses of a floating tip? Why would you use a floating tip on any of those rods I mentioned earlier? Well, pretty simple. It's just dry line presentation in the water. If you're fishing shallow riffles, if you're fishing a surface presentation, you're going to want a floating tip on the end of your skagit head. You can't just use a skagit head without a tip of some sort. So we have floating tips for those times when you do need to not sink very far. They cast great. They really turn over well. They'll turn over a bigger fly sometimes. So you can use them on your skated dry flies and your greenbutt skunks if you're just trying to swing within 6 inches of the surface. That's the time for a floating tip. And we've got the 7.5, 10, and 12-foot configurations to match rods. And then, so for us, we're floating down the river. We'll have a rod rigged with a muddler and a floating tip, and then a rod rigged with a sink tip and a hobo spey, say. And so we'll go through the run first with the floating tip and switch rods up if we don't find any action that way, and switch to the sink tip, and then move through the same run a little deeper. So so specifically, our SHS floating tips are designed for steelhead and salmon fishing with a dry line. So in conclusion, we went over what floating tips we have, the 7.5, 10, and 12 foot. We went over what rods they would work on, and we went over sort of why we would use these. They're a great choice in this time of year when you're starting to chase trout, summer steelhead, stuff like that. They come in handy. We like to fish a dry line a lot. Like I said earlier, we go through the run with the dry line and then follow it with the sink dip. So that's a great tool to have in your toolbox. Thanks for watching.